In our headlines on this Wednesday, May 28th, here in South Korea, presidential contenders are back on the campaign trail today, following their final TV debate last night as preparations are underway for 2 days of early voting starting tomorrow, that is, Thursday. Meanwhile, the number of newborns jumped almost 7% on year in March, according to Statistics Korea, which add the number of marriages also rose over 11% on year. And over in the Middle East today, that is Wednesday, May 28th, Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas mark their 600th day of violent confrontations. We are counting down less than a week to the snap election scheduled for June 3rd. And on his campaign trail, Liberal Party contender Jae-myung is addressing his supporters here in Seoul. I have our political correspondent Shin Ha-young standing by live with details. Ha-young, as always, it's good to have you on. So where exactly are you reporting from?
Sunny, I'm currently in front of Seoul Children's Grand Park in Gwangjin-gu district, where Democratic Party presidential candidate Jae-myung just wrapped up his speech, as you can see behind me. And following the final televised debate yesterday, it is now focusing his campaign on Eastern Seoul, which the party describes as a region that shows Seoul's past, present, and future. And he aims to attract support from voters in the capital by sharing his plan to make Eastern Seoul not only a new hub for business, culture, and transportation growth, but also, as a result, a better place to live. Ahead of Wednesday's rally, he joined a live YouTube broadcast where he emphasized his commitment to push South Korea's benchmark index, the KOSPI, to 5,000 points and outlined plans for stock market reform. Take a listen.
South Korea's conservative governments have not been typical conservative governments, which has made them irrational. The economy relies on rationality and predictability. With little economic policy and frequent corporate abuses, the market stayed weak. Fixing these issues could boost the market by 200 to 300 points.
Ha-young, early voting begins tomorrow, and I understand the Liberal Party has called on voters to exercise their civic duty.
That's right, Sunny. A day before early voting begins for the snap presidential election, the Democratic Party focused on getting people out to vote. And floor leader and acting chairman Park Sang-dae, who also serves as a chair of the presidential campaign committee, urged the public to vote to end what the party described as an insurrection. Take a listen.
Let's bring peace, revive the economy, and unite the country by taking part in early voting this Thursday and Friday. Everyone, please make sure to vote. Your vote is more powerful than guns and swords.
Park also noted that overseas voter turnout had reached a record high, reflecting a strong desire among Koreans abroad for peace and change in the country. He stressed that it is now up to voters in South Korea to carry that momentum forward. And he is expected to cast his vote in Seoul's Sinchon on the first day of early voting tomorrow and encourage others to take part as well. That's all for this hour. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Ha-young, as always, thank you for that coverage of the Liberal camp. Up next, we turn to the Conservative camp, whose contender Kim Moon-soo is campaigning in the country's southeastern region. For details on this, I have our correspondent Kim Do-yeon joining me live. Do-yeon, welcome back. So what's the latest at your end?
Sunny, I'm at a rally in Yeongcheon of Gyeongsang-buk-do province, and this is also his home birthplace. Now, as you said, he's in the southeast region, targeting voters from the conservative stronghold before early voting opens tomorrow. And take a listen to what he's pledging to local voters here.
Dear citizens, we need an express train system that connects Busan, Ulsan, and all of Gyeongsang-namdo province, so they're all within an hour of each other to make cities that are convenient for commuting. I think jobs are the best welfare, and I'll be the president for it.
He's got a total of 7 rallies throughout the day, plus a visit to a university campus in the region and a visit to a national cemetery for servicemen and women. He started his rally far down in Jongun of Gyeongsang-namdo province, then hit Busan. Now he's in Gyeongsang-bukdo province, a bit further north in the region, to hit cities in the province, and he'll end his rally for the day in Daegu later. As I said, this is his last push to unite traditional PPP supporters who were feeling lukewarm about the election, which has come from the PPP's former president's impeachment. His message, of course, reiterates that his DP rival Lee Jae-myung has legal risks.
Also, Toyeon, as I mentioned earlier to Hae-young, 2 days of early voting starts tomorrow, that is Thursday, and I hear Kim will also be casting his ballot early. Do tell us more.
That's right. As for Kim's early voting, he's going straight to the Lion's Den. Now, he says he's going to vote at a booth in Incheon's Gaeangbu district, the congressional district of Lee Jae-myung. Take a listen to what the camp had to say about this.
To put meaning into voting in Incheon, it's not only Lee Jae-myung's home district, but also the historic city where the Incheon landing operation turned the tide of the Korean War, preventing a communist takeover and paving the way for South Korea's post-war transformation.
Meanwhile, as for the merger, the Reform Party's Lee Jun-seok continues to be adamant about finishing the election, so the timing seems tough, and there doesn't seem like much communication between the two parties at the moment either. But they have until late into the night today. The PPP, however, says it's willing to give anything except for the candidacy. The PPP also claims that many Reform Party voters may change their minds, as choosing Lee Jun-seok could be wasting a vote. So even a three-way race has its benefits. That's all for now. Sunny.
All right, Toyeon, thank you for that coverage of the Conservative camp. Moving on then, Reform Party candidate Jun-seok also continued his campaign today while reiterating his resolve to remain in the race. He held a lunchtime rally at Yeouido Park with white-collar workers before heading to Gangnam Station and Korea-U.S. in southern Seoul to touch base with young voters and startup company workers. Now, starting later this evening until the last day of the official campaign period, he plans to engage in overnight events to interact with voters one-on-one. Also earlier today, he apologized for his use of crude language during Tuesday's presidential debate while referencing alleged remarks by the son of Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung. And that final presidential election debate that was aired live Tuesday night saw its fair amount of ad hominem attacks as the candidates sought to share their defense and diplomatic policies. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young has the highlights.
The final presidential TV debate took off with intense verbal exchanges as the 4 leading candidates clashed over visions of foreign policy and domestic political reform. Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung voiced support for the South Korea-U.S. alliance, calling it the foundation of Korea's diplomacy, and even said trilateral cooperation with Japan is necessary. But he maintained a stance that Seoul shouldn't neglect ties with China and Russia.
We must manage our relations well. There is no need to antagonize them as we are doing now.
People Power Party Kim Won-soo raised concern over Lee's alleged involvement in an illegal remittance to North Korea, saying it was fattening the Kim Jong-un regime and its missile and nuclear threat.
I will strengthen nuclear deterrence and enhance our defense capability to build a Republic of Korea that will not be shaken by any threat.
Responding to a question from Lee, Kim Won-soo said nuclear weapons should be pursued if it is possible within the scope of the South Korea-U.S. alliance, and also suggested nuclear sharing arrangements similar to NATO's or a Korean-style model. Lee criticized the stance, saying that denuclearization of the Korean peninsula is already a given. Meanwhile, the Reform Party's Lee Jun-seok criticized both the DP and PPP for simply aligning with larger powers and pledged practical ways to overcome Korea's security crises.
I will elevate South Korea from a nation that depends on alliances to one that designs and leads them.
He said he'd coordinate policy on foreign affairs, unification, defense and internal affairs with a Deputy Prime Minister for Security and by merging the foreign affairs and unification ministries. He also suggested establishing joint South Korea-U.S. military logistics facilities to produce shells and fill the U.S. ammunition gap, and replacing increases in defense cost sharing with the supply of Korean-made weapons. He also questioned the DP candidate over his past claims on America's deployment of the THAAD missile defense system to South Korea, saying that such claims align with the views of China and conspiracy theorists. Jae-myung said it isn't appropriate to continue fueling controversy over the matter. He also said there was no evidence of his alleged remittance to North Korea. Meanwhile, Democratic Labour Party candidate Jun-seok declared he would appoint a civilian as defense minister and dismantle elite military factions.
I will create a scene where the U.S. and North Korea establish diplomatic ties. Based on active exchanges, I will realize peace on the Korean peninsula.
The 2-hour debate was also intended to address domestic political reform, but was overridden by mudslinging, targeting Jae-myung's ongoing criminal trials and his party's push for legal revision and judiciary reform, an apparent attempt to exonerate him. Kim Moon-soo, meanwhile, was criticized for his association with impeached President Yoon as other candidates called to close the chapter on the dark legacy of martial law. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Korea Institute for International Economic Policy is conducting a feasibility review of tariff talks between Seoul and Washington. The review follows a request by the Trade Ministry, as the law here requires the government to carry out economic feasibility studies on newly sought trade deals. Within the focus of this latest review are non-tariff barriers, such as the beef and rice sectors, among others. Now, ultimately, the task of hammering out a fresh trade partnership with the U.S. will fall on the shoulders of the next administration, which will enter the top office on June 4th. Meanwhile, on the demographic front, more babies were born in March and more marriages were noted as well. Our Moon Ji-young covers the latest findings.
The number of newborns in the first quarter of this year recorded its highest in 3 years, driven by increased marriages and improved perceptions of childbirth. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that a total of 21,041 babies were born in March this year, marking a 6.8% year-on-year increase. This represents the 9th consecutive month of growth and marks the first time in 10 years that March birth figures have increased compared to the previous year.
Last year, people started having babies again, having delayed doing so during the pandemic, and now it seems this is continuing this year. Additionally, we're seeing births from couples who married 2 years ago and last year being added to this trend.
The number of marriages also continued to climb, with 19,181 couples tying the knot in March, marking an 11.5% increase from the previous year. This marks the 12th consecutive month of growth, the longest upward streak since record-keeping began, and its highest level in 6 years. Some experts attribute this increase to changes in individual perceptions of marriage.
Even just 5 or 10 years ago, there were many times when marriage was viewed as something not very cool. There were also many extremely negative perspectives about it. But these days, it's true that those views have softened significantly.
Meanwhile, the number of divorces dropped by 3.2% from a year earlier. The country's total fertility rate, the average number of children a woman is expected to have during her lifetime, also edged up. It came in at 0.77, up 0.04 from a year earlier, with gains seen across all age groups from women aged 24 and under to those in their 40s and beyond. Despite the rise in births and marriages, the country continues to face a natural population decline. With 31,141 deaths reported in March, a 0.2% increase year-on-year, the population contracted by 10,100 individuals. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Seoul ranks 15th among 1,000 cities across the globe this year, according to a British economic advisory firm. Oxford Economics says its 2025 Global Cities Index shows Seoul soaring past 26 spots from last year to rank 15th worldwide this year and second in Asia, just after Tokyo. The evaluation covers 5 categories, including economy, human capital, quality of life, environment and governance. While Seoul ranked 5th worldwide in human capital, it lost much ground in environment owing to the seasonal yellow dust affecting air quality. Meanwhile, New York, London and Paris, in that order, were ranked the top 3. In the Middle East, ordinary Palestinians continue to bear the brutal brunt of Israel's counteroffensive against the militant group Hamas as both sides mark a tragic milestone today. Our An Sung-jin reports.
Thousands of people stormed towards an aid distribution point, causing a stampede. Shots are fired into the air to disperse the crowd. On Tuesday, following almost 3 months of aid being blocked, the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distributed around 8,000 food boxes, or around 462,000 meals in the southern city of Rafah.
We want to eat, we're hungry, we have been humiliated, with the communal kitchens and the water and everything. Look what they've put for us.
The Israel-Hamas war has reached the 600-day mark. Nearly 2 years into the conflict, more than 54,000 people have been killed and over 123,000 injured. Gazans suffer from severe food shortages and a lack of access to healthcare in the devastated enclave. Israel has faced widespread condemnation for the civilian suffering caused by the conflict. 600 days ago, on October 7, 2023, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 and kidnapping more than 200 people. That led to massive Israeli military offensives, airstrikes, and a ground invasion of Gaza. Though ceasefire negotiations continue with mediators including the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, a deal has yet to be reached. International organizations such as the World Health Organization urgently call for an immediate ceasefire and the release of all remaining hostages. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In its latest border control initiative, the Trump administration has halted visa interviews for international students seeking to study in the U.S. as it prepares to vet their social media accounts. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The U.S. government is now looking into mandating social media screening for international students who wish to study in their country. In preparation for the new review system, the U.S. State Department has ordered all diplomatic missions around the world to temporarily suspend visa interviews for international students. In an announcement made by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday, consular sections should not add any additional student or exchange visitor visa appointment capacity until further guidance is issued in preparation for an expansion of required social media screening and vetting. However, Rubio said that the government will proceed with interviews that have already been scheduled. Those looking to apply for the F, M, and J visas will see their interviews temporarily suspended. F visas are issued to students who wish to study at a U.S. university or review language training, while the M visa is for those who wish to receive job training. The J visa is for exchanges in the fields of education, arts, and science, particularly for exchange researchers and students. If the Trump administration does carry out the screening process, it could significantly slow down student visa processing, effectively hurting many U.S. schools that rely heavily on foreign students to boost their financial coffers. The government had earlier imposed a partial social media screening requirement, mostly targeting returning students who may have participated in pro-Palestinian protests. However, the latest order does not specifically say what the government would be screening for, but that it aims to keep out terrorists and battle anti-Semitism. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here in Korea, an annual international peace forum is currently underway on the southern island of Jeju. Organizers say some 4,000 participants from 30 nations are attending the 20th Jeju Forum, which began earlier on this Wednesday. On the agenda of the three-day forum are talks on geopolitics in the face of the Trump administration's America First policy and stability on the Korean peninsula, as well as regional maritime security.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In a historic address to Canada's Parliament, King Charles III reaffirmed the nation's sovereignty and freedom, responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent suggestions of annexing Canada as the 51st state. This was the first time in nearly 5 decades that a reigning monarch has opened a session of the Canadian Parliament.
Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.
King Charles delivered the speech from the throne in the Senate in Ottawa on Tuesday, emphasizing Canada's enduring strength and independence. Quoting the national anthem, he declared the true North is indeed strong and free, a statement interpreted as a rebuttal to President Trump's annexation suggestion. While the king did not directly mention President Trump, his remarks were seen as a clear affirmation of Canada's sovereignty in the face of external pressures. The speech, written by Prime Minister Mark Carney's government, outlined Canada's legislative agenda and underscored the government's commitment to democratic values and the nation's independence. In Mexico, authorities have found more than a dozen bodies in an abandoned house in central Mexico during a missing persons investigation, according to a statement released by the state prosecutor's office late Monday. Between May 23rd and 24th, investigators from the Guanajuato State Prosecutor's Office conducted a search of a deserted property using ground-penetrating radar and detection dogs. 17 bodies were located inside a grave in the abandoned home in Irapuato. Items such as knives and shovels were also discovered at the scene. 5 victims have been identified as previously reported missing persons. Guanajuato, a thriving industrial hub, has emerged as Mexico's most violent state, recording over 3,000 homicides in the past year alone. In China, at least 5 people were killed in a huge explosion at a chemical plant in eastern Shandong province on Tuesday. The explosion occurred at around noon at the Gaomi Youdao chemical facility in the industrial park of Weifang City. According to reports, 19 people were injured while 6 individuals are missing. The blast created an enormous fireball and sent thick black and orange smoke hundreds of meters into the sky. The shockwave shattered windows nearby and was felt by residents as far as 7 kilometers from the site. More than 200 emergency workers were dispatched to the scene. Finally, after making stops in Los Angeles, Geneva, and Hong Kong, a huge rare pink diamond ring with a gem weighing 10.38 carats is set for auction next month in New York. The fancy purple-pink, kite-shaped diamond ring is believed to have belonged to Marie Therese, daughter of France's last queen, Marie Antoinette. The diamond, likely originating from Indian mines, was passed down through European royalty before being sold in Geneva in 1996. It has since been reset by a renowned jeweler into a blackened platinum ring. The piece is estimated to reach between $3 and $5 billion at Christie's on June 17th. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Early summer-like daytime heat continued today across the country. Today's highs rose up to 26 degrees Celsius in Seoul, 28 degrees in Daejeon, 29 degrees in Gwangju and Kimcheon. As the heat gets stronger, the atmosphere will become unstable, leading to strong showers. Just like today, there will be showers in some areas tomorrow. In addition, we need to be prepared for strong UV rays. Tomorrow afternoon, ultraviolet rays will be very strong in most areas due to strong sunshine. Please refrain from doing outdoor activities between noon and 3 in the afternoon when the UV rays are at their peak. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Busan will start off at 16 degrees, Gyeongju at 13 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 26 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 27 degrees in Daegu. Temperatures will rise up to nearly 30 degrees all over the country throughout the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, that ends our newscast for now. As always, thank you for watching.